one of the key values that AbilityWorks has is, attitude is much more important than ability. And it's difficult to build a really inclusive workplace. And so I wonder, I guess my question to you is, how can we be better allies to people of lived experience? What does that look like? And how can we start to value them more?
So I'm focusing just on disability now.
Yeah.
And perhaps just a bit of background with regards to disability, because we live in a society that takes a very medical model approach to disability, where our attitude tends to be, there's something wrong with the person, or they need to be fixed in some way, as opposed to a more social model, which is that disability is a result of the barriers that exist in the environment. So the barriers around, the physical barriers, or the communication barriers, or the social barriers, or the attitudinal barriers. So when you're looking at disability in that context, it's just impossible to think about how you wouldn't get the view of someone with a disability about it, anything, because their experience is so unique in the sort of society that they operate in. And at AbilityWorks, what we tend to do is focus on what people can do as opposed to what they can't do. So the best example of that is inclusive design, where we use people with disability for who they are, as they are. And I'll just give you a bit of background on inclusive design. It's the principle behind inclusive design is when you use people with very complex support needs to input into design, because when you do that, you actually end up with a better product for everyone. And I'll give you a simple example of a footpath and a road, and having a more graded slope from the footpath to the road is helpful not just for someone in a wheelchair. It's helpful to someone pushing a pusher, or a worker carrying heavy loads around the city, or someone with a temporary disability, or a traveller with a suitcase, or an elderly person. So if you design with complex needs in mind, you make a better product for everybody. And as a result of that, we've been able to provide our employees with really fulfilling work, and they've been inputted into the design of Melbourne tram stops, the suburban rail loop, Melbourne Airport rail link, Myki cards, one of our customer, Transurban's New Sydney offices. So it gives them such great pride and joy to be asked about inputting into such important projects.
Yeah, that's a really good. I'll grab the mic off you. That was a really good point, and it sort of reminds me of the concept of universal access, right? If we're designing, we should be designing for everyone, so no one feels excluded. And I think it's an important point that we heard in the forum as well, was there's a big difference between accessibility and inclusion, and we can't just have one or the other. Accessibility is whether or not we can access a service, but what's the point of accessing it if we don't feel included at the same time? And so we have to be very much working on both of them in tandem, like you mentioned. And it sort of makes me wonder, when we talk about this universal access and try to elevate the voices of people with experience, sometimes it can almost feel tokenistic. I'm really curious to hear Catherine's thoughts on this, because throughout the forum we were hearing, I guess, comments that there's no room for tokenism anymore. We need to rewrite a new narrative. And so I read on your website, I did some research, that Deadly Wares has this value of wear your ethics. So Catherine, can you tell me a bit more about what this actually means? And how can we start to value the 60,000 years of First Nations wisdom and expertise?
That's a really big question, to be honest, and it probably won't be able to be answered within a very short time frame of tonight. But the reason we went with Wear Your Ethics for Deadly Wares is about fashion has a real power. Everybody wears clothes, like most people, let's be honest, wear clothes every single day of their life. And so you have the power on your shirt, with your pants, your dress, your skirt, your shoes, whatever, your socks, and even your underwear if you want to go there. It has an opportunity to send a message. It has this opportunity to send a message about you, who you are, and what you believe in, and even an ability to think about the world and what the future of the world looks like. So, when we talk about ethical clothing, as well, ethically resourced, like organic clothing, all those things actually have a power to change the world. And so every shop and every dollar we spend has the power to change that. And we also donate part of our profits to Care for Country. So we also plant trees. And I should have checked the number before I jumped on today, but I think we're in the mid 600 trees since we started our business, which kind of just, yes, thank you. It blew our minds because we thought maybe in 5 years' time we would reach 500 trees. But yeah, we've blown that out in our concept. So yeah, I think wearing your ethics is about, making sure that what you're wearing, is representing you, but also what you want the future to look like, and to share that message. And you can share a strong message of allyship on your shirt, or with anything you want today, in today's times.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Nick, how are we going for time?
We're sort of done.
We're sort of done? Yeah, alright, beautiful. Well, I guess I might summarize then by just asking one last question.